check. Who's this? Is this Dale's class?
Pardon me?
Is this Dale's class tonight?
It is,
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think Ron's probably teaching the other term, I wrote it down.
I think Jared is teaching that. I'm trying to figure out if this was Dale's or if this was from Sunday, Ron's from Sunday morning.
Oh, Mary, how are you?
There he is. Now say what you said about him.
Travis been talking about me?
Yeah, he
This
said,
is
well,
yours.
he said, where's the teacher?
What?
This isn't yours, is it?
No,
I was just checking.
that's Ron's. He's talking about prayer. I'm talking about Genesis.
All right.
And you can take it down to slide 40 if you want to.
Is it Genesis Revisited? The PPT file or which PowerPoint file is it? Is it this one? Revised.
Yeah,
That's it,
revised.
revisited.
I'm going to say revisited. I didn't put anything revisited in there.
From a new spin on it, huh?
Yes.
Some
40.
papers over there.
Yeah, I'll keep
Is
going.
it 20? That says 40 or 30?
40.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay.
That does not look like the slides I put up there. You got a bunch of other stuff on there.
Well, it's not the.
It's a slide, but you got a bunch
Yeah,
of
I
other stuff
know.
on it.
I'm trying to launch the.
There we go.
Does that look like it normally does?
That looks better.
Well, he deleted the whole thing off the computer. It's lost forever. That would be bad. I panicked when I called the where is it? What do I do?
Somebody else usually sit back here with that, or John Nips usually here.
Do what?
Yeah, John's the only one that messes with
Yeah,
that.
John Nipp's the only one that messes with it.
Now, if I did, I'd lose it for sure. If I did something wrong, it would just. Oh, that's a cute skirt you're wearing, Mary. That's really cute.
What?
Your skirt is cute.
Oh, I haven't been so long.
You go ahead and hit record there if you want to.
You what?
Good evening.
There we
Good
go.
evening. Oh, I don't know why I'm so bubbly today.
Working stuff.
Well, I'm Donna, by the way.
Yep,
I'm
it's
Ashley.
working.
All right.
I'm here with Karen. She picked me up.
Hello, Isaac.
Oh,
Hello, Isaac.
Hello. Oh, that's only Karen we have. Karen Straw?
That's a great thing. You only have one Karen.
Well, let me say that I know. We have a bunch of Johns.
I work for a John. Actually, no, I work for a Rashad. John is my frontlines manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Karen's a
work
very nice
for
person.
a John, a Rashad, a Vince, a Steven, and a Daryl.
See, my nerves are bad. I mean, you just told me your name and I don't remember what it was.
Ashley. Sorry, I just overloaded you with names.
I'm Donna, so because none of us, only one of you, so it should be easy for us to know yours. Hopefully I won't have to ask you again, but don't be surprised if I do.
Just call me Harley. I'll answer that too. I was down in Houston and I forgot my name tag the first week I was down there. I went down Tuesday
There was a
weeks.
dealer that last night, didn't there?
So we had stick-on name tags. Of course, like halfway through the day, they'd fall off. And we go to lunch, we come back, and we write her name back on. And so I just started putting Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn. So everybody called me Harley.
I don't know where it is.
Mr. Jack. Wait, you said you do know who she is? Robin Hood's nemesis? Joker's girl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the Suicide Squad.
All right, we're in chapter 9 of Genesis. And in your handout it'd be page 25. We'll start with capital letter E, because I want to mention a couple of things there in your handout.
I'm very obnoxious. I got a hoodie, a Suicide Squad hoodie for my for Christmas from one of my best friends because she accidentally ordered 2. So that's now my go-to hoodie. I just slip it on and like, yes. Hi.
Pat McBride won't be here tonight because she had cataract removed today, so she can't see right now. Debbie Hooten won't be here. If you haven't heard, her father passed away Monday. She was on her way down to Temple, hoping to get there before he passed away, and she didn't make it. So, and she's the oldest child, so she's pretty stressed out right now. So keep her in your prayers. Also, Maxine Light just got word they just put her back on antibiotics again. Her cellulitis has flared up, which is not good because they told her that they may end up having to amputate that leg, and all we can do is continue to pray that that doesn't happen. So please keep her in your prayers. Let's go to our Heavenly Father in prayer. Our most loving Heavenly Father, we thank Thee so much for this day and for the many blessings that You have given us. And we thank Thee, Father, for the privilege that we have to be able to come together to study Thy Word without fear of persecution, to be an encouragement to one another, that we can look forward to that day that Your Son comes again. We ask, Father, that You be with our members who have physical ailments. Our sister Maxine Light, that she might recover from her illness. And we also ask, Father, that You be with our sister Brenda Hogle, as she is struggling with some back issues. Our sister Pat McBride, as she recovers from her eye surgery. We also ask, Father, that You be with our sister Debbie Hooten at this time, as she's lost her father, that she might be comforted, and we ask that You would use us as instruments, that we might reach out to them and help them in any way that we can. We have other members, Father, that due to age and poor health are not able to get out. We ask that You be with them as well. Use us as instruments to reach out and help them in any way that we can. We ask also, Father, that as we continue the study in Genesis, that we would have a full understanding as to the reason why this book was written, that we might be able to apply it to our lives to be the kind of Christians You want us to be. These things we ask in Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen. All right, if you look at Genesis chapter 9 and verse 18, it says, Now the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Ham was the father of Canaan. Now I mention that because in your handout on page 25, he made a comment here that I thought was interesting that I bring to your attention. That's capital letter E. He says, for some reason we are introduced to a man named Canaan numerous times in this chapter. Twice Ham is called the father of Canaan. Once here in verse 18, and also if you go down to verse 22, it says, and Ham the father of Canaan. Then when Noah curses Ham's action, the curse is placed upon Canaan. Look at verse 25. In verse 25 it says, Then he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants, he shall be to his brethren. And then Canaan will become a servant to Shem and Japheth. Genesis 9, 26 and 27. Here it says, And he said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. So this is all I have about it, is that we're introduced to a man named Canaan here. We'll see more a little bit later on, but I want you to see this in chapter 9. What I do want you, yes, Mary?
Well, I was wondering, the Ham being punished, was that because he was disrespectful?
Yeah, we'll look at that in just a minute. So your question's a good question, and hang on. If I don't answer it, let me know, okay? What I do want you to see, though, in verse 18, or verse 19, and I have it up here, these three were the sons of Noah, okay? It says, these three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. Now, the English Standard Version more clearly renders the sense of this verse. The ESV says, from these the whole earth was populated. That's what we want to see here, because remember, they've come off the ark now, and you had these three sons and their wives. And from these three sons and their wives, we have the population that we have today. Okay? So, God blesses them, and He makes them fruitful as He uses them to repopulate the planet. Alright, look at verses 21 and 22 then. Then he drank of the wine and was drunk and became uncovered in his tent. Well, let's go back to verse 20. And Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and was drunk and became uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Now, obviously this is capital letter F in your handout. Good things can become evil and tempt us. Verses 20 and 21, and then also capital letter G, Ham did something that was evil against his father. The exact nature of the sin is difficult to determine, is what your handout says, all right? But we're going to look at that for just a moment. So we look at verses 21 and 22. This is far from the only place in the Scripture where we see an otherwise great man of faith exercising terribly poor judgment. Okay? Such instances should give us hope when we fall from the mountaintops of faith into the folly of sin. God doesn't expect us to be perfect. He knows that as human beings that we are tempted. And sometimes, as much as we try, we might yield to those temptations, such as Noah did here. Noah's sin was drunkenness. But his sin was quickly eclipsed by that of his son. Precisely what Ham did is certainly of some debate. Okay? And this is the question that Mary is asking. One suggestion is that Ham's transgression was merely an act of disrespect towards his father. A transgression of what would later become the fifth commandment. Who knows what the fifth commandment is?
Honor your father and your mother.
Okay. Another suggestion then says that the expression used is not a mere harmless and accidental, he saw his father naked, but he looked at or he gazed with satisfaction. That's another suggestion. The debate is still on, so we don't know exactly what it was, but either one of those certainly would be wrong. The circumstances suggest that it means, and he told with delight. Because, you know, he went to his other brothers, he told them. You know when I saw my father? I saw him naked. Drunk out of his mind. Now, I don't know that's what he said, but he could have very well gone to his brothers and said with delight. Those are the possible solutions to that. Probably didn't answer your question, Mary, but...
No, I think it's those suppositions are just suppositions. I think they're really having to hunt for something to come up with those.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been that the fact that he actually looked in his father's tent when... Why was he doing that to begin with? You know?
Why did he enter his father's tent?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm taking from it, you know.
But that goes
That's
back
like entering your bedroom, you know. It's,
that goes back to being disrespectful toward his father, too.
yeah.
So, and that would be what I would probably suggest is that what took place here was a lack of respect for his father. Any other comments?
But that would have been, it's multiplied by the fact that he repeated his two brothers.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
He kept his mouth shut. It was serious enough. But to tell them is the ultimate in disrespect.
Yeah. I agree
Better
with
to not enter at all, to
Yeah.
begin with.
you. Donna?
It wasn't anybody's business anyway, he was in his own tent.
Mm-hmm.
If he hadn't gone in there, he wouldn't have seen it, so he should have gone in there to begin with.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
Well,
that's
this is
my
my
point.
tent, I can,
Exactly right. All right. So, we'll look at Genesis 9:25 through 27 now. So, 24. So Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. Then he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants, he shall be to his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. All right. Hi, John.
How you doing?
Good. Well, hello, Sharon. Glad you were able to make it tonight.
Can't believe you just started.
Well, you shouldn't be late.
Everybody late.
Back to the bus.
You started early.
Oh.
That's my story, Ian.
All right, Genesis chapter 9, verses 25 through 27.
Page you.
I like it right here.
25,
Genesis chapter 9.
I believe.
Y'all ain't with me now. Genesis chapter 9, verses 25 through 27. Sin carries consequences sometimes to the next generation. And this is what we're seeing here in verses 25 through 27. One must immediately ask why the brunt of Noah's curse fell upon Ham's son when Ham was the offender. It is clear that we do not know precisely why Canaan was cursed rather than Ham. The significance of the curse is the end result when it says, and let Canaan be his servant. The native people of the promised land would serve the people of God, is what we're seeing here. Because Ham's descendants populated Africa, many have sought justification for the African slave trade from this passage, which there's nothing to that, but there are people who would suggest from this passage here, chapter 9, verses 25 through 27, that it is the justification for the African slave trade, okay? However, Ham is not cursed, no matter how freely pro-slavery men have employed this text. We are not talking about Africans, we're not talking about blacks, but we're talking about the Canaanite people who inhabited ancient Palestine. So those individuals who take this out of context and try to tie it into the African slavery trade are taking it completely out of context, okay? Since this curse is confined to the Canaanite people within the Hamites, those who reckon the Hamitic people in general to be doomed to inferiority had therefore misread the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. It is likely, too, that the subjugation of the Canaanites to Israel fulfilled the oracle sufficiently. God gives the first sign of the covenant. Go back and look at verse 12 again, where he says, And God said, This is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. So he gives the first sign of the covenant. Ham is possibly rejected from the messianic line due to his wickedness that we read in verses 20 through 27. Okay? Any comments through verse 27? Yes, John.
24 clearly establishes Ham as the youngest of the kids,
Uh-huh.
of the boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's mostly mentioned as a third, in the second place, but he's the youngest.
Yeah. And that's what we were saying early on. Sometimes just because of the way they're listed does not necessarily mean it's the oldest to the youngest or anything. It can be in various ways. Like you're saying here, Ham is the younger son, but oftentimes he's mentioned as the second in the list. So, all right, any other points? Okay, let's go to chapter 10. From these three came 72. 72 people. Here's Japheth. And these are all of Japheth's. Here's Ham. And you can see all of these descendants from Ham. And they have one more here. Shem. Now Shem, remember what I told you. The red is the ancestry of Jesus. That's the Messianic line. And this is what we see throughout the book of Genesis. And we'll continue to follow that throughout the book of Genesis, the Messianic line. Okay? And you notice here at the bottom, here's Nahor, here's Terah, and here's Abram, or Abraham. All right. So, Table of Nations map. You can see here Japheth. This is his nation. And that's the only map I have. Let's see here. Let's go back here. Here's Turkey. And Israel, Lebanon, Egypt down here. Ham is over here. Shem is all this. The yellow is Ham, the blue is Shem, and this up here is Japheth. That's the three sons. Okay? Just as God said, from these three sons, the whole earth was to be populated.
Was Japheth, where's he?
Do what? Japheth?
What area?
Right here.
Up in Turkey.
Turkey,
Okay.
and a little bit of Lebanon and Israel.
Well, my Bible said something about an isle.
An isle?
Like an island?
I'm not sure what.
Somebody written in there. There was
So-
some writing in it, said Britain, but it was in hand by somebody.
That's over where your map don't go.
Yeah, the map goes, Britain would be way over here.
What? Said something about
So like half
Gomer
of
and Magog.
Russia and the other half is Europe.
Well, Gomer, that's one of the sons there.
Of Japheth.
Yeah. And here's Magog right here.
Russia.
Okay?
Okay.
But these were his sons that occupied this territory. And this is all of Shem that occupied this territory, and then this is all of Ham that occupied this territory, the yellow.
Russia's not that.
Yes, John.
Where's Babel at on
Babel? We'll get to that, but it's suggested that Babel would be somewhere down in here.
there? I was just curious where it would be located.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that mean it's close to where the Garden of Eden was?
That'd be right down here.
Yeah.
Real
You
close.
have,
Yeah.
there's only two of these
There's the
rivers right
Euphrates
now
and
that we know.
Tigris.
Here's the Euphrates River, and here's the Tigris River. But if you go back to the first part of Genesis, there's four
There's
rivers.
two more
Two
rivers.
we don't know. Yes, John.
You don't really know where Garden of Eden was because you
Right.
don't know where they started at from the flood.
Exactly. Exactly. The Garden of Eden from the flood.
Yeah, the flood when Noah started,
Right.
you don't know where he started at. He could have started in South America, but he floated for a year on the waters
Yeah, he was up here in the mountains of Ararat.
when he landed.
Right.
Because I say, you don't know where he started from in the world.
Yeah, but she was asking about the Garden of Eden, where it was located. And we don't
I
know
just
for
said
sure.
it looks like it was close to where it was located.
Yeah.
Where that Garden of Eden was.
Oh, the Ark?
No, the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, the Tower of Babel, yeah, it's
Yeah.
somewhere down here.
Close to where the Garden of Eden was.
Yeah. All right. We're with you. John may not be with you, but I'm with you.
We'll get you there.
Okay, let's look at chapter 11.
I'm not sure
That's
that
just a
rivers,
chapter
them
10.
rivers are the
10.
same rivers there was after. The names
I
may be
get what you're
the same,
saying.
the rivers may not be.
I got you now.
You got me?
I finally did.
Okay, now all of this,
Figure out what I'm
The
saying.
rivers changed after the flood, so they may not be in the same location.
That's why there's only two. They don't know where the other two went.
Oh, okay.
all of this that I've shown you, these maps and everything, the
That's post-
offspring from the three sons,
Same with God Logan.
the offspring from the three sons and everything. We're going to look at chapter 10, but I don't have any other slides on chapter 10 here. What I want you to see is from 3 people came 72, which is what I mentioned a while ago. The period of time between the flood and the establishment of the Abrahamic covenant passes in relative silence. There's only one event of note that occurs in this time, with most of the narrative describing how Noah's descendants filled the earth. Interestingly, sevens dominate the table of nations. The list traces through the descendants of Noah's 7 grandsons. Japheth's genealogy lists 7 sons and 7 grandsons. I can go back to that slide if you want me to. Ham's genealogy lists 7 descendants of Cush, 7 cities controlled by Nimrod, and Egypt's 7 sons. And all of this we can find in chapter 10. The entire list includes 70 nations that descended from Noah's 3 sons. Unfortunately, no one is quite sure what to make of this particular phenomenon, though it may simply be a device to aid in memorization. There are things that God ensures that we can comprehend and retain through memorization by the way that it is worded in the Scriptures. So, a more symbolic interpretation would be that it was Moses' way of saying that by God's blessings, Noah's sons perfectly filled the earth. What do we know about the number 7?
It's a perfect number.
It's perfect.
It's
Okay?
mentioned often in,
Do what, Mary?
it's mentioned often in Revelation.
So you look at Genesis chapter 10 and look at verse 32. And I might mention in your handout on page 26, before we look at verse 32. The title of Genesis 10, the generations of the sons of Noah, and then the families of the sons of Noah in generations 10:32. Divisions of the nations from 3, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, came 72. You go down in the lessons that he lists there. Lessons, capital letter A, God has made one blood all the nations of the earth. And then capital letter B, this list is historical, political, geographical, genealogical, and biographical. This chapter is setting the stage for all that is to come in the remainder of the Old Testament. And you look at capital letter E. Ham is going to be responsible for many of the nations that would become the enemies of God's people. Babylon, Assyria, Egypt, the Philistines, the Canaanite tribes, all listed in chapter 10. All right? So now look at verse 32 specifically. Chapter 10 and verse 32. It says, now this is the genealogy of the sons of Noah. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These were the families of the sons of Noah according to their generation in their nations, and from these the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. In this table of nations that you see up here on the slide, we learn how Noah's sons spread across the earth. Genesis 10:2, for example, says the sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. And that goes back to this slide that I gave you here. This is Japheth. And those were the sons that I just read there in verse 2. Okay? Some of the more well-known descendants of Japheth include the Medes through Media and the Greeks. Javan is the Hebrew name for Ionians. Okay? In general, the sons of Japheth moved westward and populated Asia Minor and what became Europe. All right, that goes back to this. So you have Asia Minor and what became Europe. Okay, this is what the question you were asking, Pat. All right. You look at verse 6 of chapter 10 now. The sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. And that goes back to this slide then. Here's Ham. There's those 4 sons that we're talking about right there. Okay? Cush became synonymous with Ethiopia and Nubia. Egypt is well known to all. From Egypt, the Philistines arose. From Canaan came a list of nations, which is often repeated in Numbers and Joshua. Jebusites, Amorites, Hivites are 3 of the tribes or peoples listed in Numbers and Joshua. Also from Canaan came Sidon. All of these names become familiar foes of the people of God. Alright? And that was, of course, Ham. Now, the offspring of Ham followed the offspring of Cain in city building. Nimrod was behind building of Babylon and Nineveh, the capitals of the 2 nations which would eventually take the people of Israel captive. And you read that later on in the Old Testament. Although it only appears as subtext, we can see the continuing war between the seed of woman and the seed of the serpent brewing through Ham and his sons. Alright, any questions or comments about Ham? Alright, let's look at Shem again for a moment. Go to verse 22 of chapter 10. The sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Okay? Now, while the sons of Japheth moved westward and Hamites moved southward, let me go back to this side. Okay? Sons of Japheth moved westward, Hamites moved southward, right here. Now we're going to look at Shem. The Semites, or Shemites, spread throughout the Mesopotamian region. In addition to those names listed, other familiar neighbors of the Israelites came from the Semitic line. Through Lot came the Moabites and the Ammonites. Go to Genesis chapter 19, if you would. Genesis chapter 19, and we're going to read verse 36. Isaac, if you'd read that for me.
Thus both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. Was that the one?
Yeah. 19 verse 36?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see here.
Moab.
Yeah, read more of it. Read through 38.
The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and called him Ben-Ammi.
Ben-Ammi.
He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day.
Okay. So through Lot came the Moabites and the Ammonites. Okay? From Ishmael, and let me go back to the slide here. Okay? Not finding it there.
You didn't break down Abraham.
Yeah, he's under Abraham.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He's under Abraham. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, under Abraham, down here. Okay.
And not from Sarah.
Go to Genesis 25, and Ron, if you'd read verses 12 through 18 for me.
Now this is the genealogy of Ishmael.
Abraham's son, and Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's maidservant, bore to Abraham. And these were the names of the sons of Ishmael by their names according to generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Abijah, then Kedar, Adbeel, Midsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadar, Tema, Jetar, Nephish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these were their names by their towns and their settlements, 12 princes according to their nations. These were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people. They dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go toward Assyria. He died in the presence of all his brethren. Okay. Stay with chapter 25, because we're going to look at a couple more verses there in a minute. From Ishmael, then, we had the Arabs. From Keturah, we had the Midianites. Look at verses 1 through 4. John, you had that?
Yeah. 25.
Yes. Chapter 25, verses 1 through 4.
Let me give it a try.
Well, I'll help you with some of the
I left
names.
my glasses at home.
Oh, you did? The Isaac alone he is.
Then again, Abraham took a wife, and her name was
Keturah.
Keturah, and she bare him Zimran, and
Jokshan.
Jokshan, and Midian, and Midian,
Ishbak.
Ishbak,
Shua.
and Shua. And Jokshan begat Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were
Ashurim.
Ashurim and
Letushim.
and
Limon.
Limon. And the sons of Midian, Ephraim and Epher and Hanok and Abida and
Elda.
Eola. All these were the children of
Keturah. You did pretty good without your glasses. All right, so from Keturah, we had the Midianites. From Isaac, the Edomites. Look at chapter 36, if you would.
What's that first one you said?
Keturah or Isaac? Huh?
Midianites?
Yeah, Mennonites. M-I-D.
The ones we got nowadays?
No, not Mennonites. Midianites.
Okay.
M-I-D-I-A-N.
Okay.
Midianites.
There you go.
Is that that help you?
Yeah.
All right. Chapter 36 and verse 9. Kathy, if you'd read that for me, please.
And this is the genealogy of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir.
Okay. So from Isaac, we have the Edomites and the Israelites. It is this last group which makes the Semitic line. Let me go back here. This line here, Messianic line, the Semitic line, a special interest to our author. Of the three groups, it is only the Semitic line which receives a full genealogical treatment. And we're going to look at that in chapter 11, verses 10 through 26 in a little bit, okay? Now go back to chapter 10, if you would, and look at verse 25. It says, to Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. This is a reference to the Babel incident that we'll look at a little bit later. From the ages and years given in chapter 11, we learn that this happened roughly 100 years after the flood. Okay? Peleg also stands out because it was through him that the Messianic line continued. Look at verse 18 of chapter 11 for just a moment. Florence, why don't you go ahead and read that for me?
Peleg lived 30 years and begot Reu.
Go ahead and read verse 19 and 20.
After he begot Reu, Peleg lived 209 years and begot sons and daughters. Reu lived 32 years and begot Serug.
Okay. Here's Peleg, Reu, Serug, Nahor, Terah, and then Abraham. This is the Messianic line. The earth is refilled. The Messianic line continues through Shem then. Okay? And that's basically, again, your chapter 10. Any comments?
Reu sure didn't live very long, did she?
No.
Because usually they're just, they're in the hundreds, and this was young.
Yeah. John. And then G.
You got a chart showing how long Noah lived compared to these folks?
I do not.
Because what you're saying, if this started at 100 years, and these people was just 20 and 30 years old whenever they got their sons, Noah may have still been alive when Abraham was alive. Because he's got 350 years after the ark. And if this started at 100, that gives you another 250 years.
Yeah. I'll do some checking on that. That's a good question, good point. I'll see if I can
I'm
find
just
that.
doing rough math. I'm
Yeah, no.
not adding it all up exactly.
You've aroused my curiosity now.
That's all I was trying to do.
You mentioned the term Semites.
Yes.
The term by which Israel is known today is Semitic.
Yes. I also said that
And it's
too.
a negative term because
Yes.
those opponents are called anti-Semitic.
Yes. Yes. Very true. Any other comments? Yes.
It was interesting that the book of Matthew, the genealogy of Jesus just starts with Abraham. I mean, I'm sure what you're saying is true. I just thought it was interesting that it only starts with Abraham.
Well, and you look at, let's see, what is it, Luke's genealogy?
No.
No, what I'm saying is if you look at it, it'll list a few other names too. You have to remember that Matthew was written to the Jews.
Sure.
And so when the Gospel according to Matthew was written, if you keep in mind what the Jews were looking for, they were looking for the coming of the Messiah. You look at Mark, which was written to the Romans, and you look at everything in the book of Mark, you see the power of Jesus mentioned there, because Romans sought power. You look at Luke being a physician, he recorded things in order, and he wrote it to the Gentiles. And so this is why you'll find similarities in these accounts, but you'll also find some differences as well, based on who the writings were to. Any other comments? All right, well, our bell's going to ring here pretty soon, but we're going to begin a little bit with chapter 11. If you look at your handout, page 27, we're going to talk about Babel and Megiddo, a city and a father. We're going to talk about confusion and chronology, humanism versus heaven. We're going to talk about this tower and Terah, the fact that God scattered them, a problem and a patriarch is what we'll look at in chapter 11. The key verse, according to what SQ suggested here, is verse 8. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. And so when you look at the outline, the making of a tower, 1 through 9, the men from Shem, 10 through 26, and the move to Haran, 27 through 32. The first lesson then that he lists on capital letter A, a common purpose unites men even if that purpose is evil. Genesis 11 verse 4. What we're going to do is begin reading verses 1 and 2. It says, Now the whole earth had one language and one speech, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. So, the land of Shinar. That's the first bill. Okay. Look at Isaiah, the 11th chapter and verse 11. Let's see, Donna, I think it's your turn to read.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand against the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and Pathros, from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the seas.
Okay. So we're talking about the land of Shinar, a comparison with Isaiah 11, verse 11, and also Zechariah chapter 5, verse 11. Sharon, you want to read that?
Hadn't found it.
Okay. When you find it. At any rate, these two verses, the land of Shinar is a comparison with Isaiah 11:11 and Zechariah 5:11, places this in the land where the city of Babylon, or Babel, would grow up. All right, read Zechariah 5, verse 11 for me.
And he said unto me, to build it an house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base.
Okay. Now there's no certain answer to the question of when this happened. However, if we understand Peleg's name, or Peleg's name, to indicate the time he lived, we can be fairly sure that this event was at least 100 years after the flood, as I mentioned earlier, okay? Now look at verses 3 and 4. It says, Then they said to one another, Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. So let me put verse 4 up there. So we have man's imaginations often in conflict with the will of God. Yes, John?
What translation are you using?
New King James. You're using King James, I know.
Yeah, mine says slime
Slime.
for
Yeah,
mortar.
so does mine.
I was just
Slime
wondering-
and mortar, asphalt.
I was wondering where they got the asphalt.
But it's kind of like when you look at the ark, what was it they used there? They used pitch, which was
Sap.
kind of a tar, okay? And asphalt is kind of a tar, so it just depends on which translation you use.
Asphalt's made from petroleum
Well, asphalt as we know it
though. Tar is
today.
made from tree sap.
Asphalt, yes. It just,
Sharon's got a question.
yes.
I just wanted to say something. It's funny how that God scatters them on the earth, and they're wanting to do this in case they're scattered through the earth.
Yes, yes.
So strange.
So hold your comment there, because you're right. Their stated purpose was not what we have so often heard. Their stated purpose was not to get to heaven, but renown and unity, as you're saying. They didn't want to be scattered. They wanted to all be together. This movement was based on striving for pride and seeking to show the earth their greatness.
Yeah.
Note also that their pride was not just in building the tower, but also in building the city. Notice what it says there again. Let us make a name, this is verse 4, let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. So their pride, it was for their pride, not just for the building of the tower or building of the city. Unity in thought, word, and action may be a worthy goal. But what is the focus of that unity? When you look at what their focus was, the people did not consult God about building the city. They did not seek God first. John?
I don't know the exact verse, but when they come out of the ark, God told them to go out and multiply the whole earth.
Right.
In other words, scatter.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to scatter.
He told the three sons that you would populate the whole world.
But they didn't want to. They want to stay together.
Yeah. So this was a problem. They didn't seek God first. God thwarted their work because they left Him out of their plans. Yes, Jensen?
Noah missed Abraham by 2 years.
Noah missed Abraham by 2 years?
Yep.
Okay. There's your question. Thank you, Brian, let me,
Where'd you find
mention one other point.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I told you it's close.
Let me mention this point here. From this point on, Babylon becomes the symbol of the pride and the arrogance of man arrayed against God. Okay? Plans that are not God-focused will invariably lead to rebellion of the worst kind. And that's what we're going to see here in chapter 11. I appreciate your comment. Did you tell Kathy where you found that?
I
Yeah.
did Google search it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just one man's thoughts, you know.
Well, it laid it all out. Everybody's years born, year death.
There you go.
Was that long the lifespan? And after the foot is that long.
Close by just by looking at man.
Google it, man.
Made no way.
Google has the answer.
Then you're in trouble.
Well, you can look at it
Hit the
and go
books.
back and compute everything yourself.
You go to Hermione Granger
That's
and hit the
Google's
books.
problem, Sharon. They have finances.
My fault, I wasn't over there.
But you know what?
Now remember that the chart that I showed you there,
You're welcome.
they had some
In a
of the
way,
notes.
they built that tower out of fear.
Now
So
chapter
that
10 was
their
just
fear
showing where they were settled.
Yeah,
Chapter
they-
11 is
people were awful prideful
before
back
all of
then,
this.
just like we
They
are.
still are.
Yeah, like we are today.
I'm gonna tell you, back
I
when
mean,
you
I'll
were
be
telling
honest,
us
I
that
pride myself in
uh,
trying to be one of the best
Tim
bike
wasn't the
technicians
oldest,
at sporting
you
goods,
tried to
but
use
I
his
know I'm not,
age
'cause I
after
work for the guy who worked at
well,
LC
if you'd
and
have looked
bikes
at
for
the
20 years.
921, specifically tells you
You have
that
to have
Jacob's the
a little
oldest.
competition there.
Yeah, is there?
I
Competition.
know.
I mean, in plain language.
I think I mentioned, I might not.
You didn't, you didn't.
I didn't. 213? Okay, thank you.
What did you Google search to find that?
Huh?
What did you Google search to find that?
What did I put? I put Noah alive when Abraham born.
Oh. Well, see, I don't Google search. I don't know how to look up to find that in Google.
Just ask a question. You just put it in a question format and it goes, oh.
Well, I'm gonna turn this thing off over here. I got to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this thing off.